Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of We Should Have Recorded That with Phil and Adam. Today it's just Phil, and I have a special guest that I'll introduce later. But just keep Adam in your prayers and your thoughts. He's not feeling well today after a long day of work, so just keep him in your thoughts and prayers for that. I also want to give a shout out to our number one fan, Michelle. I'm going to save, she sent us a recording, but I'm going to save that for when Adam comes back so that we can respond to it together, because I think you would like that. So we will play that. We'll get to hear Michelle in our next her voice message in our next episode, and maybe she will join us. And if you would like to be featured on our episode, please send us a voice message or comment on the videos or in the podcast, and we would love to interact with you as you desire. So today I have my sister with me, Astiney. Hey, Astiney, how's it going?
How you doing today? Glad to
Doing
be here
good.
with you.
I'm glad to have you with me. We mentioned this. When was that, at the beginning of the year, or maybe even last
I
year?
think it was.
Yeah, I think it was last year. We were talking, and we were having conversations about education, and I was like, yeah, you should come on. And so I'm glad that you're able to come on tonight. I hate that Adam was not able to be with us, because I think he would have, we're all educators, and so we would have enjoyed that conversation. But I think we're still going to enjoy ourselves. So this is my younger sister. She is the
Hmm.
middle, and actually I would say both of us are in the middle, right? We have our older brother
Yeah.
Rodney, and then, but growing up it was me, then my sister Astiney, Corrine. She's named after my grandmother, after our grandmother. I'm saying my after our grandmother
Right.
on our dad's side. But we called her Astiney growing up, and then Miguel, my younger brother. And so Astiney is a special education teacher in is it Birmingham, in the Birmingham area?
Yep. Birmingham City Schools.
Okay, and so we've been having these conversations, off mic about education, and kind of like, some of our thoughts about it. And so it was like, man, we should have recorded that. Like, we should get this. We should
Yeah.
kind of get together and have these conversations. So thank you again, Astiney, for joining me for this episode.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad to. It's this that we're making history, because I think for Adam and I think you are our first family guest. I don't think we've had any other
Okay.
family guest on, so we're making history right now. Yeah,
All right. Woo woo. First
yeah.
one.
Ooh, just I want to soak in that moment. This is historic, but anyway. So so we're gonna be talking about education and special education. I
Hmm.
want to first ask, because I know this, but to help our listeners get to know you, um I'm gonna just do a little more introduction. You of course, we both are from Mobile, but you went up to Tuscaloosa for school, in
Yes.
Spelman, and you decided to stay kind of in
Right.
that area, eventually moving to Birmingham. But you did not go to
Right.
school to be a special ed teacher, right? Or to be an
Right.
educator. So how did that happen?
I did not go to school to be an educator at all. I went
Mm-hmm.
to Stillman College in Tuscaloosa. And when I went, I originally majored in biology. When even growing up, I thought that I wanted to go into the medical field. And even going through my biology degree, I still felt like that's what I wanted to do. But getting on toward the end of it, I kind of like fell out of that. So I was kind of in a place of like, what am I gonna do when I graduate? They tell you that once you get to the end of college, you have it all figured out. But sometimes
Uh-huh.
you don't. So when I got to the end of college, I was still like, what am I gonna do? So I originally started doing another job. I worked in the kitchen for a little while. I thought I wanted to go into culinary arts. Didn't really like that field. Then I worked in the Mercedes plant in Vance, Alabama for a little while. I made some good money, but it just wasn't where my heart was, you know? So once I
Mm-hmm.
started teaching, that's where I really found my passion, where I don't really mind going to work. You know, people say that when you're growing up, like you'll find a job that you just love. You don't mind going to work. And that's how teaching is for me.
Wow, great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I thank you for correcting me. I think I did say Spelman, but you went
Yeah.
to Stillman College.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Spelman is not in Tuscaloosa, but you went
Right.
to
Right.
Stillman and HBCU. We should add.
Yes.
So yeah, you did that. And so like like I mean, I'm kind of you even reminded me of some of the avenues you've taken, right? Like as you were kind of telling, as you were saying, after you
Right.
graduated, all the different things you consider doing. I think that's. I mean, when I think about my journey to education, I'm definitely in the same situation. I think I was kind of, um, I think I've shared this before, running from it, in
Hmm.
some ways, because I like we don't really make you don't really make a lot of money being an
Hmm.
educator, but
Definitely.
but how did you end up deciding to do special education, to be more specific?
To just be more specific,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna tell you the real story. I mean, when
Okay.
our grandmother passed, I
Mm-hmm.
just started thinking like, what did I want to do with my life? You know what I'm saying? Because I was working in the plant. Like I said, I was making good money, but I just hated going to work every day. So I started to pray and ask God to show me like where I was supposed to be. And
Mm.
I was strolling through the internet one day at work looking for a job. so I'm So I'm at the plant, I'm strolling over the internet, I'm thinking like, what do I need to do? So I'm on UAB's website. I'm thinking like, what am I gonna go get my master's in? At this time, I had already applied and been accepted into a quality control management program because I'm like, okay, I'm working at the plant. I
Right.
might as well get a master's that is
Mm-hmm.
around this field so I can make more
Mm-hmm.
money here. Uh, I had already been accepted into that program and I just wasn't feeling like that's what I really wanted to do. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I applied for education at UAB. And at first, I was thinking like I could teach high school biology or something like that. You know, I took the praxis for biology a few times and I didn't pass it. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is not where I'm supposed to be. I was like
Mm-hmm.
3 points away the last time. I think I was really close. And
Mm-hmm.
my professor, the professor that was trying to help me get into the education program, she was like, you're so close. I suggest that you try maybe the secondary education when you'll probably pass that one and then you can work
Mm-hmm.
as a special education teacher. So I was like, okay, I'll take a chance on that. When it took it the first time I took it, I think I scored like 35 over, the required amount for the test. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that's the sign from God right there. So I decided to go ahead and do it. And then I made the decision to work in the plant and go to school. So I was going to school, waking up at like 2 in the morning so I could go to work and then get off
Mm-hmm.
and go to observations. It was just so much. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was in the place that I should be, but I was like, I don't know if I can keep working like this. I can't keep getting up at 2 o'clock. Then I'm going
Right.
all day and then I'm getting up at 2 o'clock again to go to work. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
by, I said, I need a job by just January, February of 2018. February 15th of 2018, I got the job that I have now. So
Wow.
I feel like God just lined it all up in his own perfect timing because when I was looking for a job or a way out of the plant, I could never find it until I came across this field. So, and then getting into special education, being able to work with those kids and be an advocate for them, I've really found a love for that over the past 3 years of doing it.
Well, I mean, there's so much that I'm gonna write down that word advocate because I really want us to come back to that. But
Mm-hmm.
like, something, I mean, I'm at being a new father. I have a new home, um, and we're dealing with the pandemic. Just all of these things that we have going on. One of
Right.
the things you just said, like, trusting God. That's something I really have been trying to encourage Wendy and encourage myself at the same time, Like
Right.
I say that all the time. Like I'm telling you, but I'm really telling myself. You know
Hmm.
that, and so I mean it's really one of the things I've been reminding myself as I've been reminding Wendy is that God has provided for us.
Hmm.
You know, he is opening doors, right? He
Right.
is pointing us in the right direction.
Oh yeah.
He, and man, and I like how like what was that like for you? Because I mean, I'm just thinking about what you're saying. Like you going from two and to how late in the evening were you going, and then having to get back up at two. Like what was that? What was that like for
Well,
you?
I would work from 2, I think I would leave the plant at like 10, 11 every day. And then I
Uh
would go
huh.
right to the school to do my observation hours at the school.
Mm-hmm.
And I would stay there until like 2 or maybe the end of the school day. And then I would go
Okay.
home and do homework till like 7,
Right.
or
Right.
8.
Right.
And
Right.
then I would go to bed and start over again the next morning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep. It was
Mm-hmm.
hard, but it was necessary. And I think a lot of times people, they want the reward at the end, but they don't want to take the path. And sometimes we have to take that really hard, less traveled path to get to what
Right.
we want. And when you really want something, I don't even remember the struggles of that. You know what I'm saying? I
Right.
know it was a struggle, you know what I'm saying? But I don't even remember how hard it was on me because now I've reached the goal that I was working for and I just got another one set now.
Right. Right. I mean, like and I think I've learned this lesson studying music, right? Delayed gratification,
Hmm.
right? Like I study a piece to sing or to play on the piano, or even to play in a band. And we practice so much
Right.
to eventually perform it, and like it doesn't come right away. Like maybe you spend
Hmm.
a month or 2 months, preparing this piece, or maybe even a year longer to perform it that one night. But like you said,
Right.
it pays off, and that it's worth it, right? And I mean, and of course in these
Right.
situations it's even more worth it because like you said, you are in a place where you feel fulfilled, where you have fulfillment,
Hmm.
so
Yep.
I guess maybe my question was this a hard decision, but it seemed like it was kind of an easy decision, but it was a just a trying process. Like how would you say that, or how would you say
Yes, it
it?
was. I would agree with
Mm-hmm.
you on that. When I made the decision, my mind was made up. I knew I wanted to leave my job that I had, and my mind was just fully made up at that point when I decided to go ahead and join the program. Like that was my whole focus. I think it took me 6 months, to get in college. After you've been out for a while, you got to get your transcript. It took me about
Right,
six
right,
months
right,
to get everything done that I had to get done. So my mind was made up at that point that I was going to go
right.
back to school and this is what I was going to do.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Well, that's great. That was great. So let's as we're kind of still talking a little bit more about special education. Um,
Hmm.
I remember growing up, and the joke is you're a special ed. What are you in special ed?
Hmm.
Like it's a
Right.
taboo. There's a taboo around it,
It is.
and I mean, and even for me, I don't know if I've even said. I think I may have mentioned it before that I spent some grades in special education, in remedial
Hmm.
special education, and so how have you dealt with the taboo around more of the remedial special education?
And remedial special education is mainly the part that I work in. So I pull my students
Mm-hmm.
from class. They come to my resource room to work on
Mm-hmm.
assignments, and I just try to fill in gaps where they're missing so I can help them, reach whatever goal we have for them in their individual plan by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But I totally understand what you're saying. It's not a. I try to make it as less taboo as I can for my students. You know what I'm saying? And like you said, you've experienced that having to come out of your classroom to the special ed classroom, and then somebody always have something to say. But I
Mm-hmm.
just try to remind my students and any student that has anything to say to them is that we all have challenges. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We all have
Uh-huh.
challenges. We all learn in different ways. And that's why they come see me because they learn differently. They need a little bit more help in different areas, and that's what I'm here for. I fill in those holes for them, and that's how I explain it to them, and that's also how I explain it to other students. You know, accept the help that I'm giving you. Don't feel ashamed. You know, because all of us need help. I tell them all the time,
Mm.
I'm not the best speller. I have to ask Siri sometimes how to spell words or double check myself. So we all,
Uh,
even as adults, we have areas of deficit, you know, and we just have to be able to get in and focus on those so they're not a deficit anymore. And that's what I tell them. If reading is your issue, you just need to practice reading. If math is your issue, you need to practice math. But that'll go back to another conversation for me of just how education has changed in households. You know what I'm saying? Because
mm-hmm.
growing up for us, I tell my students all the time, we worked even during the summertime. My mama used to go get a workbook for the next grade so that we
Mm-hmm.
were ready when we got there. We
Mm-hmm.
had already seen some stuff from that by the time we got there. And I don't think
Mm-hmm.
education is as big of a priority in families as it has been in the past. And really, I'm sorry to keep going on and on,
No,
but
no,
really, I
this
mean,
is
you
for
can't
you.
blame parents. They have so much other things to do nowadays. You know, like
Right.
I said, when we were growing up, mom was at home with us. She was at
Yeah.
home with us when we got out of school. She was there with us during the summertime. So it's easy for her to do those things with us. But nowadays, there has to be a two-parent household working. And if it's
To
not two
working on.
parents working, then you got one parent working two jobs. You know what I'm saying? So they have a
Right.
lot more going on that they have to get done in the day. And unfortunately, their kids' education, it falls on the back burner a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember that, like the Hooked on Phonics, especially. I think
Yep.
I ran those tapes ragged. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, I think I see that same thing. Um, on a different scale. I'm in a private school. But the
Mm-hmm.
importance of having the families engaged. And I was even
Right.
I had a second grader saying to me, you know, that they had been told in kindergarten that they couldn't read, and I'm thinking to
Right.
myself, like that. I think that's another part. The we are planting these negative seeds
Mm-hmm.
into our children's mind, and so a kindergartner who is really kind of just starting, most of the
Just
time,
learning their letters. I
just learning
mean,
the letters and being told you can't read when you're at the beginning.
right.
Like I
And
mean,
that's what
it
you think
sound
of yourself. Your whole
right, right. It sounded like she had overcame that, thank God. But like
mm-hmm.
I feel like that's what a lot of our students are dealing with. But it seems like you're doing a really good job
Mm-hmm.
of trying to help, again, be an advocate, and stand in
Yes.
the gap for them.
I think people really underestimate educators, I'm sorry, really
Mm-hmm.
underestimate the impact that a positive relationship with their student can have. You know, that
Mm.
relationship building, you know, it's kind of lost in all the paperwork and all of the standards and all of the lesson plans that they have to get done. That building the
Mm-hmm.
relationship, that is kind of lost on them, because building the relationship, it won't only help you in like a social aspect, it also help you with the educational part as well. If you build a relationship
Right.
with a student, you actually know what they can and cannot do. And when you're
Mm-hmm.
talking to them, they can see that you actually care. If they can't do something and you want to show them how to do it, then that's gonna bridge a whole nother gap for you right there. Aside from the fact that kids already feel like teachers don't really care anyway. All we care about is the grades. You know what I'm saying? So we
Mm-hmm.
have to be
Mm-hmm.
able to show them that relationship side of it as well.
Yeah, and I mean like that. Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, you will learn more from someone you do have relationship with than someone you don't.
Right.
Um, you'll learn a lot more because you trust. I mean, there's a level of trust, right? Like you're saying, right? That it's
There
not
is.
just about getting the grade, but this person wants to see me succeed. This
Mm-hmm.
person wants me
Right.
to see me succeed. Like what was that process, to go back to the word advocate? Like, was there a light bulb, or did it just always make sense for you, the being the advocate as a special educator, or as an educator, I should say?
Honestly, coming in, honestly coming in, I was. I came from a biology background, so I hadn't had any educational classes or anything. So I was a little lost. So I'm glad that first semester that I got to get into the curriculum of the master's program I was receiving, which was for
Mm-hmm.
collaborative special education teacher. I'm glad that I got to
Mm-hmm.
get into that curriculum. They had management and things that first semester before I even had a class that kind of helped me
Mm-hmm.
put some strategies in place. So when I did have a class, I would become more comfortable because me growing up, I'm not a big public speaking person. I become more comfortable with it now that I have to teach, you know what I'm saying? But
Right,
at
right,
first I
right.
was really nervous. I can still remember my first day. I didn't even want to talk in front of the kids, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I've grown a long way from there.
Uh-huh.
So that's
Uh-huh.
another reason I'm thankful for this job. It's brought me into a new type of person. You know what I'm saying? Like my
Mm.
my communication skills have evolved, my leadership skills have evolved. So I couldn't be more thankful for the career path that I did choose.
Yep. What was that like? Let's talk more about that. Like, what was that like that first day? Like, how did you soldier through, um,
Whew.
those nerves and the
Well,
classroom
I
management?
came
Because that was.
in
Go ahead. Go
my
ahead.
first day, I didn't even bring any students into my room. That's how nervous I was. I just kind of got the room set up how I wanted it because I felt like if I had it set up in a way that I was comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
I would thrive in that environment. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that I
Mm-hmm.
have. I think that my students really respond to me well. Even that first year, like when I started bringing the kids in, and they were already halfway through the school year. I got hired in February, so they were halfway done, and I built a
Mm-hmm.
great relationship with that first group of kids. Like they were awesome. You know what I'm saying? Of course, you have your
Mm-hmm.
good days and bad days at school, but that first group of kids, I was able to build a great relationship with them, and I didn't have to do the paperwork side of it. You know what I'm saying? Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you get
Mm-hmm.
lost in the paperwork side, but you have to find that balance, especially as a special education teacher, because there's so much paperwork we have to do that goes along with the education of our students. So we have to get that done, and we have to provide the services. So,
Right.
it may be different in other districts, but in my district, we do the paperwork and the services as one teacher. So,
Okay.
getting used to that the next year, that was a big thing for me. And I was finishing up school, so I had a lot going on that second year. But last year and this year, I feel like I'm really getting into my groove of it all. I'm really starting to
Mm-hmm.
enjoy it more. I am ready to go back to school though. I think I'm going to go back in the fall for leadership. So that'll be the next
Okay.
thing that I do.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So great. So what to eventually maybe go into maybe like administration or something like that? Is that what you're thinking?
Right, into
Mm-hmm.
administration. That's what I'm thinking. I had a conversation with our dad a couple of weeks ago, and
Okay.
I was talking to him about it, and that's what he was. When we were talking, I was telling him I was leaning toward my EDS in leadership or my EDS in special education, and he was like, "I always go for the leadership," and he wished that he had done more of that in his field. So that kind of
Uh-huh.
motivated me to go toward the leadership way. That's why I was leaning anyway, but he kind of pushed me on over there.
Uh-huh. 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 That's cool. I want to go back to this balance between paperwork and the teaching because as in special education where you have IEPs among and there's an IEP and then there's another
Mhm.
type of document for certain types of students.
Yep.
Like how have you tried to balance that the difference the between doing the documentation and being a teacher?
But when it's class time, I focus solely on class. I try not to do any paperwork if the children are in my room because I want to give them
Mm-hmm.
my undivided attention. Like I said, I want them to know that I actually care if they pay. I want them to know that I actually care
Right.
if they understand. I don't want you to just get the answer. I care if you really get this. So I
Right.
just want to
Right.
show
Right.
them that by giving them my attention. And I
Mm-hmm.
normally just try to work on paperwork during my break periods. That's normally what my break periods are filled with. And then toward the end of the year, when I'm writing IEPs, I just stay over after school. I don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like they say, teachers don't get paid for all their hours. So
We don't get paid
you
for
just have to
our
accept
hours.
that and move on.
That's so true. Like yeah, like you're lesson planning and all the time, and you hope. Hopefully you're being inspired, right? Like, okay, I
Right.
I tried this, and then okay, let me try that. And so we're always thinking of like what's a better way
Right. It's
to
always
to
something coming to your mind. Like, I can
right.
do this in class. I
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
always have,
Mm-hmm.
even in church, sometimes the pastor will be preaching and I'll make notes from his sermon because I'm like, this is good for my kids right here. I can tell them this. So, yeah, I'm always.
Right. That's funny. That's funny. One of the things I've been thinking about, and I think this was really struck me as I was finishing my degree, because in music, we people are separated. You're either performer or an educator, and maybe dealing even with the sciences, you're gonna either be like like a research scientist, or like a professor, like a science professor.
Right.
And there's kind of this separation between actually
The
doing it
two.
versus teaching it. And I think like
Right.
I think we shouldn't have that. I think like like we should all be we're all teachers, whether you want to believe it or not. You're a
Yes.
teacher.
Yes.
whether
I
that's your
mean, you
profession
teaching
or not.
somebody something throughout the day. At least you
Uh-huh.
want to be. You know what I'm saying? I want to be an
Right.
inspiration to somebody, even if I'm not a teacher. You
Mm.
know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Mhm.
At least you
Mhm.
want to be. You want to be able to show somebody something in your life, that maybe they can use in theirs. Even if you're a
Mhm.
Facebook professor or Instagram professor, you're showing somebody something that they can use in their own life.
Right. And I think, one of the things that I think I'm going to be more, well, one, thinking about Anais and her development as a after going through school, at least with my bachelor's degree, and thinking about this, I'm more aware of of just her development, and I'm
Yeah.
more really trying to play off of, okay, so what is she doing? Like what are her eyes going towards, or like
Hmm.
like I see her doing this, let me encourage that. And
Right.
I like it, and I think I'm more comfortable after having the training to be able to say, oh, I think I can, I'm really looking forward to teaching her math, or to reading with her,
Hmm.
or to watching her take her steps, or to be outside and she's feeling on the leaves or
Oh
whatever,
yeah.
or, chasing a butterfly. I'm looking forward to kind of being with her as she is learning and exploring the world. And I think as and that I have that, I'm comfortable, or I'm ready to do that because of my
Hmm.
because I'm an educator. But yeah, I just kind of went on a rant there, but I think all of us are educators. Did you?
You went on a
Yeah,
daddy rant. It's okay.
I was like, I'm gonna try not to. I don't want to do too much of that, but yeah, how do you think the one of the things I do like about lesson planning, other than having to write them, is that it helps you process like what the students need. And like, do you feel that way with IEPs? And does it help you kind of like really, reflect on, this is where, John Doe is, I can help little Johnny better next time? What do you think about that?
I do feel that way about IEPs. I feel like a well-written IEP can tell you everything you know about a student, need to know about a student, except
Mm-hmm.
aside from getting to know them, because you still need to do that. But their
Right,
IEP can
right.
tell you everything you need to know about them academically, what their interests and preference are, what their strengths are, what their most recent data is. So the IEP can open the door to give you an introduction to the student, especially academically, because there's a lot of students that don't know how to explain to you what they need, and that's something that we work
Mm-hmm.
on in the eighth grade, because when they go to high school, they need to be more of a self advocate. When they talk to their high school
Mm-hmm.
teachers, they need to be proactive in knowing what they need. You know what I'm saying? So in eighth
Mm-hmm.
grade, we
Mm-hmm.
work on them, getting those skills to help them when they go to high school. Um, But yeah, I think the IEP and letting the student get familiar with it as well is important too. Like having them in on the meeting. As an eighth grade teacher, I get the opportunity to have my students sit in at their end of the year meeting, which is very interesting
Mm-hmm.
because they get some of the kids, that's their first time ever being in the IEP meeting. So hearing their
Mm-hmm.
input on their educational process, I think is very interesting. And I enjoy
Mm-hmm.
doing that at the end of the year, the ones that can participate.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, a lot of kids they can't explain to you in like technical terms, But if you're talking to
Right,
them, you're
right,
having
right, right.
a real normal conversation. They can tell you, well, Miss Woodard, I'm not that good at math. Math's not my thing. And some of them, it
Mm-hmm.
really all stems from what I find is reading deficits. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't not
Mm.
learn anything past the third grade if you cannot read for comprehension. Because once you
Mm.
get to third grade, fourth grade, you start reading to learn. You're not just reading to know how to read anymore. You're reading to
Right,
actually teach yourself new things. So if you're
right.
not able to read and comprehend by third grade, then you're missing a lot of education right there in a very
Mm-hmm.
critical time. So I am kind of in favor of Alabama making sure that kids can read on the third grade level, but that
Mm-hmm.
also requires Alabama looking back at their curriculum and seeing what teachers are teaching in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade,
Right.
because we have to hone in on the phonemic skills and
Yes.
get them to where they're able to read anything. Like I said, like when we were talking a couple weeks ago, we were talking about how much we focused on phonics when we were younger. We used to do
Mm-hmm.
hooked on phonics at home with
Mm-hmm.
mom for fun,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
phonics was a big part of our education. So when we saw words that we didn't know, we didn't just say, "Oh, that's this word because it starts with an or." We actually took our time and sounded it out. So phonics is
Mm-hmm.
an important part of reading that I think we, as an educational system, has gotten away from a little bit and started to come into recognition. It's nothing wrong with learning sight words. You can't sound those out. There's nothing wrong with learning them, but you still
Right,
need to
right.
know the phonics part of it as well.
Yeah, the um yeah, I think that's definitely, and I'm so glad that I do this thing called Win What I Need, and I'm really more
Mm-hmm.
so teaching students in my capacity in the classroom. I'm teaching students who are in the grade, but they are kind of ahead in certain areas, and so I kind of
Mm-hmm.
help to keep them, accelerate them a little bit, and that skill of phonics, like it is so important, and it's empowering. Like that's something we talk about. Adam and I talked about. We want to empower the students, right? And having that tool of phonics is empowering. Like, what are some of the other tools that you have, you would say these are tools a student need to have to be empowered in the classroom?
Phonics is definitely one. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
just basic knowledge of mathematics. A lot of kids, I find get to the eighth grade and don't know their multiplication and division. I remember when we were younger, our Uncle Jay, he used to turn the microwave on for me. That's how I learned my timetable. He would turn the microwave on, give me one of those 100 sheets with the hundreds on there, the 100 problem,
Uh-huh.
and see how
Uh-huh.
many I can get done. We did that for weeks. I can
Uh-huh.
remember it. We did that for weeks until I learned
Uh-huh.
them, and that's just what it takes. A lot of our kids today, they grow up in this society where they're able to just grab everything so fast that everything is just at their fingertips. They can log right on Google and find what they need. Everything is right there. They call it what microwavable generation. So they look at
Mm-hmm.
education the same way. Oh, I got to do all of this to learn this. Oh, I can't do that. And then if I say all it
Uh-huh.
takes is knowing your multiplications, you know what I'm saying? Like we're working on pre-algebra. So you gotta
Right,
know your
right.
multiplication in eighth grade. If you don't know your multiplication, you're not solving the algebraic expression. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be some multiplication and some division and some adding. You gotta know, please excuse my dear on Sally orders of
Mm-hmm.
operation. You need to know all of that. And I really I wish I don't know. I don't know. I wish that I could give some of my excitement for learning to some of my students because I
Mm.
think that's what's missing. You know what I'm saying? Like I wish I could just
Mm-hmm.
sprinkle some excitement, like some fairy dust on them or something, just so they're excited to learn. Like I remember when we were young, Dad used to tell us all the time, you're never gonna stop learning. I'm an adult and I learn all the time. But these kids already think they know everything. You know what I'm saying? So they're not inclined to learn too much more.
Right.
They just
But
trying to do
it,
whatever they can to get by. Then they got all these apps and stuff that give you the answers nowadays.
right, right. You sounding like a grandma over there.
I
but it's
mean,
true.
think about how far technology has come. I mean, since we were
Yeah.
kids, we
Right.
are
No,
like
you're right.
technological grandparents. I
No,
mean, we was
in the
working on the fatback computer. Remember, we all had that
yeah,
big screen
no.
in our room.
Yes. Yeah, no, I remember. But even I think I was saying this to Wendy. I remember my Virgin mobile phone, like the pre, and I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what, that was what was affordable, and what we, if I could
Yes.
just get with my own money, in high school, like that's what we had. And from that 10 years and 20 years, like technology has come so far. I think my
So
last
far.
question, because my last question, because I think, man, there's so much to get more on the personal level, though. Like you said, like you wish you could sprinkle some of that excitement, and that's one reason why I think I'm enjoying working in elementary school and pre-K, because
Mm-hmm.
I get to see that, and I hope I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to nurture that excitement. Like, how do you, um, we talked about, getting to know the students, but what is that conversation, what are those conversation starters for you to get to know them, and to hopefully try to, kind of repair some of the, or maybe some of the phobia to learning that they've kind of
Mm-hmm.
developed.
Well, I mean, I think the best way, past getting to know them, like of course, you have the basic conversations like, what do you like? What are your
Mhm.
interests? Then I
Mhm.
read their IEP. I might ask them a question based off something I read in their IEP. That'll start a conversation with us. Like I have one student that stays with me all day long. Every day I ask him, how was your night? We have a whole conversation on what he did that evening, so that lets him know that I
Mhm.
care about what goes on with him outside of
Mhm.
school. As far as the excitement for education, I feel like it's important to let kids know that they can do something, even if you feel like they can't do the work in your class. Like I said, some of my eighth graders can't do algebra because they don't know their multiplication. So what I do is
Mhm.
I'm working out the algebraic problem on the board. Somebody give me what 5 times this is, and then,
Mhm.
you get some praise for that. So that they feel a little
Mhm.
bit more confident. So when I ask the next question, it may be, what is X gonna be right here? They'll feel more confident
Mhm.
in answering. And even
Mhm.
when they give wrong answers, it's also a way you can be like, oh no, that's not the answer, but you right there and give them another
Mhm.
chance. Or you can tell them, okay, that's not the answer, it's whatever, it's this. And you were right there, you did whatever wrong. So the next time they get ready to evaluate something like that, they know what they need to do to change so that they will have it right next time. So I think that's what's important, is that don't beat them down so much, because it's always something that a child can learn to do. Even children that can't read or talk or anything can learn to do something. I had one student one year, since I've been teaching at the school that I'm at now. He was nonverbal, autistic student, but he didn't know how to tie his shoes. So we learned how to tie his shoes before he went to high school.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Among other things. But that was one of the bigger things we learned, making sure he knows how to take care of his personal hygiene. Even if that's all
Mhm.
your student can learn, they're capable of learning something. And I think as educators, we need to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and let me ask you this question. I mean, that's so good and so true, and I think, I was thinking about this today as I was reflecting, preparing for our conversation. I'm feeling, as I've kind of, going into my third year of teaching. I am, I'm definitely more attuned to, um the student that is struggling, and how to kind of, take something apart to help them when they're struggling.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I think I'm more so kind of, thinking about is how to, like, challenge the student who is advanced in, who may be more advanced in my class, where I have students who do need what I'm teaching them, you know. Um,
Hmm.
and so like that's kind of something that I've been kind of reflecting on. But the last thing I said, and that was my last question. But I have one more question I want to ask you before we go to our last segment.
Uh-huh.
Have you had students where you just like, or how have you had, and how have you dealt with, if you've had students that, man, I just like you said, like I just cannot reach them. You know, like how, if have you had students like that?
I have had students like that, and my strategy for those students is just to keep trying. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
keep trying to reach them, keep encouraging them, because that's really all you can do. And at the end of the day, if they don't learn anything from you, they might remember the next year, oh, Miss Woodard told me I could do this. And then they're going to try
Mm-hmm.
to do it for the next teacher. You know, they're going to remember your voice
Mm-hmm.
in their head. Eventually,
Mm-hmm.
they will. So just keep going. Just keep encouraging them. Keep motivating them, because that's what a lot of kids need. You know, like I said, parents are busy nowadays. Some of them don't have time to motivate their kids. They come home, they go right to bed. They need motivation themselves. You know what I'm saying? So that those
Mm-hmm.
kids are missing that. So they need that. Whatever you can give them. Like I told one of my coworkers, I just try to be, what they need. I try to be what they need, and I try to be what I thought I needed when I was a kid.
Mm. That's really good. That's really good. So again, thank you for coming on and
No problem.
sharing. I hope, whether you're an educator or not. Well, like we said, I'm not gonna make that distinction again. You are an educator, whether you think you are or not. And so I
Right.
want so we just, do just just keep doing the best we can to help whoever that student is, or whoever that, and that goes for older and younger students. Whoever you're
Hmm.
teaching, we just gotta do the best we can. So in our last segment, we're gonna talk about current events here, and so I'll go first. Well, I don't know. Do you have you thought about your current event, or would you like me to go first?
I have not. You can go first.
Okay, I'm going to share one really quick, and one kind of light and one kind of heavy. And so for my light kind of current event, we're trying to, Anais, getting her gross motor skills going, and so we bought
Uh-huh.
some toys. I actually have some sitting on my keyboard here. So she in this so my quick current event with Anais is that she took this out of my hand on Saturday, and so she was holding it. I have some pic.
Okay.
I need to send those pictures to you, to everybody rather.
Oh yeah, send
Um,
them to me. Put
and
them in the
so
family
that
chat.
Yeah, I'll do that. And then on my more heavy kind of current event, just the immigration situation at the Texas border, and and more specifically with the Haitian citizens, um, the situation there, and some of the pictures we've been seeing. And I one of the things I've been thinking, I'm trying to make this brief. Like how should I frame this in my mind? Because there are so many humanitarian issues we have going on in this world, and
Oh yeah.
my the thought that I've been coming back to is that we need to treat people like humans, because we are all humans. So we need to treat each other how we would want to be treated. Like thinking about
I don't.
whether you want. Go ahead.
Oh, you. I'm sorry. I, I I
No.
I I totally agree with you on that. I think that as the years have progressed, I mean, as I've gotten older, people are just
Mhm.
getting away from treating people how they want to be treated. Like I tell the
Mhm.
kids that all the time: treat people how you want to be treated. You reap what you sow,
Mhm.
and they don't understand it
Mhm.
in the reap what you sow. So I say you got to get that karma. It's coming to you. If
Right.
you don't
Right.
treat people right. Um. So yeah, I think that as over the years, people have gotten away from that. And if you just treat somebody like you want them to treat your family, like not even how you want them to treat you. Think about how you want somebody to treat somebody that you love. That's how we
Mm.
should all treat each other. I think the world would be
Mm.
a much better place if we can get back to that. But it's not that family feel in the world that it used to be when we were growing up.
Mm.
Everybody
Mm-hmm.
want to be
Mm-hmm.
so separate, and they want to do things separate from other people. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping
Mm-hmm.
that we can get back to that.
Yeah, yeah, me too, Aston. I mean, I'm thankful for even we were talking about grandma passing and just how I mean, I don't think we were never not close, but getting closer and the expression of that, because that's something we've talked about too, in the
Hmm.
expression of, man, I love you, saying that when we get off the phone with each other,
Right.
and
Hmm.
demonstrating that. So yeah. What is your current event?
I think my current event would just kind of bounce off yours. I think that in today's time, it's important for everybody that comes in contact with the next generation. You know what I'm saying? To help guide them and give them, like you said, we're all teachers, and let's give them a moral compass to live by. Because I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
kids don't understand, that we need a moral standard. Disrespect and being respectful to somebody, and just even genuine love is kind of frowned upon nowadays. Kids think that that's weakness. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that if that was one thing that I would want people to first focus on currently, is spreading, something to the next generation, so that we can have something to leave behind. All of us are gonna be gone one day, and it's gonna be them here. So let's leave
Mm-hmm.
something positive behind.
Mm-hmm. Amen. 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 And I want to point out, as we're ending, because that was a great note to end on. If you're watching us, you are enjoying something that was not coordinated. Um, Me and my sister and I, let me use proper grammar. My sister and I are wearing the same color shirt. We did not plan this.
Oh yeah.
Um, and and I think maybe I was looking forward to this conversation, and I do love you, and
Hmm.
I'm thankful that uh, we coordinated, and
Yeah.
and that and that we were able to have this conversation, because I agree with you. I
Oh yeah.
pray that we can get back to one we, and I think we're trying to do that, right, as teachers, with like loving each other and
Hmm.
and get back to that type of place. So thank you for that. Any other things you want to share before we sign off?
I just want to thank you for having me today. I appreciate it. It was a great conversation. That's it.
Well, again, thank you, Astiney, for coming on. So, audience, I
No
hope you
problem.
haven't. Audience, I hope you have enjoyed our conversation. Again, if you have a comment or a suggestion, please reach out to us, and I'm going to say adios.